Hi, I'm Sean Dunn, and welcome to this episode of Origin to Ambition, the Entrepreneur's Journey. In this episode, I speak with Peter Mercuri, Managing Director and co-founder of the Co-Accountants and Business Advisors. We have a wide-ranging discussion today, and I think you'll really enjoy it. We talk about things like resilience, the entrepreneur's mindset, and we talk about developing your personal long-term goals to sit beside your business goals. I think you'll really enjoy today's discussion. There's a lot in this one, so I invite you to please listen on. Welcome to Origin to Ambition, the show where we explore the small business entrepreneur's journey in business. I'm your host, Sean Dunn. Let's get into it. Peter Mercuri, welcome to Origin to Ambition. I really appreciate you making the time for me today.
Thanks for having me on, Sean. I'm excited.
You're excited? Well, I appreciate it. I know you're a busy man, and let's keep it exciting then for you. So we'll get stuck straight into it. Can you take us through a little bit about your background, yourself? First of all, tell us about your business, the Co, and then if you could take us through a bit of background and where you came from and how you ended up starting the business.
Yeah, so I'm the managing director of the Co-Accountants and Business Advisors. We started about 15 years ago with my brother Anthony at the time. We focus on business advisory. So we're quite advisory centric. We work with multiple businesses in different industries across medical space, finance space, also professional services, manufacturing. So we've got a broad range of client base. My background is I come from Deakin Uni. I did a commerce degree. Back in, I can't even remember, but it was that long ago. Then did my professional studies and became a chartered accountant. So worked for a couple of small firm to start with. Started off in audit, actually. It was my first job. And then I moved across into a larger firm. It wasn't too big. There was about 20 staff, which was also advisory centric. So quite a bit of experience in the advisory space. And then in about 2009, my partner, Davina, was on a visa. Her visa got cancelled, unfortunately, because it was a bit of a change in immigration law. So I went overseas, worked overseas for 2 years in the UK in a CFO role. So got a bit of exposure in Europe, which was amazing. And then ended up coming back to Australia because my brother Anthony had started a small firm and said, why don't you come join us? Which I've always wanted to start my own practice. And then we built off that from 15 years ago. So that kind of grew. Anthony left the business at probably about 6-7 years ago. And then I've continued to grow the business and continued to build, quite a good network of clients, quite a good network of advisors around me, including yourself, Sean, which is, working with like-minded people.
Yeah. So I find this was interesting. You just said Anthony had started a small firm and said, why don't you come and join me?
Yeah.
So would it be fair to say that you sort of fell into being an entrepreneur, a business owner?
Yeah, it was good. I kind of, before joining Anthony, I always had this mindset of I wanted to do something on my own. It was good because it kind of forced me a little bit. I was still overseas. I wasn't sure whether I was going to come back to Australia or we're going to stay in the UK. So then it was a helping hand to go, well, it's here. Let's get started. So then I did come back. I didn't know when I first got back, I was like, oh, did I make the right decision, to completely honest? Because it was very small. It was just myself and Anthony at the time.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a journey to get to where we are today, but it was probably forced in a way, but also something I wanted to do. So it was a push I probably needed and a push to help me get to where I am today. So
was that just for, for our listeners and viewers, was it a long-standing desire to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a bit kind of, it's interesting because entrepreneur is a common word used these days. I'm not sure whether I class myself as an entrepreneur, I don't know if it's just modesty, but I feel like,
I think it might be.
Yeah. I think, Yeah, I've got this perception of an entrepreneur, being a multi-billion-dollar corporation that's created something like Apple or something like that. But in me, I was quite growing up. I was always driven by what happens in businesses. Always like reading quite a few textbooks on, like Blue Oceans as an example, and people disrupting markets. Richard
Yeah.
Branson as an example as well. So that those type of people, those types of texts always was something that I was intrigued in. And I thought, I was like, what an amazing thing you could create, the ability to kind of work with people and create something that's not available in the market and actually help people across multiple levels or change the way a market's actually operating. So
Yeah.
it's something I was definitely passionate about.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have done it as soon as I did. I was 27 when
Yeah.
it came across. But then at the same time, I think if I didn't do it, I wouldn't know as much as I do. So I've probably learned a lot of lessons along the way. So, 27 is quite naive, if I'm being honest, maybe a little bit arrogant.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that got smashed out of me a bit as I learned to go through business and face some challenges.
Well, on that note, inadvertently probably give me a segue into what was going to be my next question, which is, if you go back to those early days, starting off with just the two of you, and it's small and you're thinking, what have I done? What
Yep.
were some of the notable challenges? I mean, we all have, first 2 years in my business were very challenging. I think we've all had challenges when we kick off. So what were some standout challenges for you in those early days?
I look back and I always, someone says, why do you always love your old boss? Before I went overseas, I worked for a firm and there was a guy called Vince who was what I classed back then quite entrepreneurial. He was a sole practitioner, but he'd built a business with there was 25 staff, really
Yeah.
solid business, good, solid client base. And I remember thinking, oh, he could do this better. He could do so much better. Like, why is he doing it like this? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Always thinking that I could provide advice to someone that's been in an industry for 30, 40 years. And then I kind of started on my own or started with Anthony and it was like, wow, I kind of came back to Australia. I was in a really good paying job back in the UK. I traveled for 3 months, which I got bored. I remember actually saying to my wife, I've had enough of travel, which regret saying that. I wish I never said that, but yeah, I'll take another 3 months if possible. But when we came back, it was, you kind of go into the office and you're like, great, we're starting. And there's so much infrastructure that needs to go into it, so much back of house, so much administrative, requirements, so much licensing requirements. And then on top of that, you got to do the work with the clients. And then you got to find the clients to try and build the business as well, because, and you're taking on any work to start with. And you get a bit ahead of yourself, and you start to build a bit of momentum, and you try different paths. And we joined the group to kind of try and offer everything, which didn't work, and then we lost a bit of independence. So the journey was definitely difficult. The first 4 years, we actually didn't get paid out of the business. So living off one income, which was my wife's income. So it was quite challenging. We tried to, obviously every dollar that we earned just went back into the business to try and grow. And then we slowly kind of developed more and more a larger client base. And then we kind of developed more of a reputation in the industry. We lost a bit of money when we moved. So we were originally in a small firm in Moonee Ponds, which just me and my brother Anthony. At the time when I came back, there was a staff member, which we had to let go because it was just not enough work. I always thought it would be best to be in the city. So we moved into another group, which had financial planning, finance brokerage. There was a sports management arm, but it didn't really integrate well with what we were trying to achieve because we were looking at businesses and that type of client base who was, active in business and growing. So a younger client base. And then we spent a fair bit of money in that site to try and get that going. and the revenue wasn't there to kind of get us to where we needed to. So you kind of go, we're starting a business. We've been in business for 12 months. We moved sites. We've just spent 150 grand to fit it out. The famous fit out costs.
Yeah.
And let's keep building from there. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges, is trying to find your feet and know what you're doing.
Yeah.
The strength we knew we had was, well, we've both worked outside of accounting, out of tax, which everyone keeps pushing us, pushing you into that little pigeonhole of you're just an accountant. So, which is a common misconception in a lot of accounting firms, but also I think the industry is driven that way, where a lot of accountants just do focus on tax and compliance, which is important, obviously. But I think the value add is being able to go on the journey with clients. So those types of moments with us were kind of not having a clear vision, being naive on what we wanted to achieve, and not realizing how long the journey would actually take. There was times where we probably both thought, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And then you kind of go, well, there's a lot more positives than negatives, so let's just keep tracking.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you, on that, I mean, a lot of what you've just said is probably not uncommon for people that launch themselves into being a business owner. Probably I know I was optimistic and almost thought that, once I opened the office, people will go, Sean's not a bad bloke, we'll go deal with him. And of course, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So what would you, with those challenges that you've described, and again, not unusual, but what would you have done differently then? If you think back and say, well, what would I have done differently to maybe mitigate some of those challenges, if possible?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that I've developed with time is you do, and it is a common word that people use. And even until today, it's like, what's your vision?
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually sitting down and creating a vision is quite a challenge. Like we just went through the exercise even again, like probably about 18 months ago in the business, because we've grown significantly. And it's, someone actually asked me, why do you do what you do? And it probably took me 2 weeks to try and actually
articulate it,
to articulate that specific answer. And I was like, I don't know. And I'd actually go home and I'd say to Davina, I'd be like, my wife, what do I actually do what I do? She's like, I don't know. I can't answer that. So it took me a while to get there. But then I realized, I think if I had my time again and I was to start again, it would be create your why, create your vision, and actually break it down into something that's clear that you can actually adhere to. And don't sway away from it. Because one of the biggest things we had, at some stage is when you're facing challenges in business, you look at other areas and you think, oh, that's a good idea. We could make money through doing that.
Yeah.
Probably broke one of our key rules was not to invest in something where not completely across, nor do we have a complete understanding of.
Yeah.
And as a result, we lost, a fair bit of money by doing that.
Yeah.
And going into territory we probably shouldn't have, or we would not have if we just focused on our core. And then by focusing on your core and sticking to what you know, without being arrogant and actually trying, understanding, well, you got to deliver what the market wants as well, because there's no point actually offering something that nobody wants or nobody wants to pay for. I think that's probably one of the keys is create your vision, create your whys, create your values, and then stick to those, because they should be what drives who you are, who you're going to be, and how you're going to get there.
I think that's incredibly valuable, what you just said. One of the things that I find often when a business client comes to me is that they haven't done those things. That's one of the things that hasn't happened. And I also think that, and I want your take on this because you work with clients on these things as well. Sometimes getting a client to do it, if they haven't done it, it's almost like, oh, this is boring, so.
Yeah. I feel the same. It's kind of, it is difficult to navigate because you got to ask the right questions with clients. And, I get it all the time. I'm like, what's your vision? And I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here's my wishy-washy. This is bullshit. And
Yeah.
I myself have had that.
Yeah.
Tim, my business partner for quite a few years, has always said to me, when we had a football team and we were trying to drive the finals, we had a vision of where we wanted to go to get there.
Yeah.
What do you want to achieve? And I used to just be like, mate, just work your butt off and don't worry about it. Keep doing what we're doing. And he's like, yeah, I get that. But the reality is, if you look deep down, it's really the infrastructure that creates the path to where you want to go, but it also creates a rule for everybody that's on your team, internally and externally, to understand what you want. So
Yeah.
it is very common for clients to think it's just another one of those, oh, here we go. And I think it's
Cliche.
through social media and everything that's come out. Oh, here we go. Here's another one of those. Let's sit down and create our vision role, and what's that mean, and how do we get there? And
Yeah.
like most people, like, just bloody work and do your thing, and you'll be right.
Yeah.
Which does work to a degree, but I think having that can also it can target an outcome a lot better than just having nothing.
Yeah. So I totally agree. I think that you do. So I think there's resistance because what you're saying is that it becomes cliched, but I think sometimes we forget that a cliche becomes a cliche for a reason. And it's probably because there's a lot of truth in it. And so I think it is incredibly important. And I think, would you also say it's not just about because it creates a goal and a target to work towards, but I think, and again, I'd be keen to hear what you say, I think it creates that anchor in the business so that when you are, and I think everyone's been through this as well, you touched on earlier about, when things get a bit tough in business, you can get distracted at looking at, oh, maybe we'll try that over there, or maybe we'll do that thing over there, or maybe we'll pay for that course over there, and thinking that that's going to help, when really, if you had the anchor of a vision, you know how to stick to your knitting and make that work. Is that?
Yeah. And
it's an anchor.
Found people that have a clear vision are much more successful. They don't look for alternatives. They're not looking for another path to freedom or to financial wealth or to create whatever it is they're trying to create. I think it's the anchor for everything. It's the anchor of the people you get on board. It's the anchor for your marketing. It's the anchor for the whole driver of your business. And if it's probably dangerous not to have it. I've sat in meetings. This has just happened probably 2 months ago with one of my clients who's got, family business, and there's different generations coming in and some exiting. And, we spoke about this at length, and one of the main shareholders at the point of potentially looking at exiting because he's getting to retirement age. The next generation's coming through, and we spoke about this, and I said, it's really important we create something to know where we want to go. And he's like, yeah, but we all know where we want to go. And I said, okay, great. Let me just ask the question around the room of the expectation. And then the funny thing, because there's probably 3 or 4 different generations in there, and there's different age groups. And I got a different answer from every single person in the room.
So, I kind of suspected where that was going to land.
Yeah, which is perfect, because it's kind of it was a good moment to go, oh, actually, you're right. We do need to take a bit of a step back, and actually develop something that we all share and it's common, because otherwise we're trying all different things. One wants to grow tenfold, one wants to grow happy to just keep plodding along, the other one wants to. So it sets the tone for who everybody is in the business, or what everyone wants to achieve, both from a business and personal perspective. So my belief is, when you create your vision, it's got to be, you create a vision for yourself, for your business, but also, as time's gone, it's also creating a vision for yourself personally. There's a disconnect. Sometimes there's so much focus on a business and you lose that context.
Yeah, absolutely. That probably leads me into a question then where, and I think it flows nicely from having a vision, but in your business, what values, do you find are important in your business every day? The values.
Yeah. So I suppose I've just, as I said, done this. So the core values for us is probably, humbly confident, but also authentically fun. And that comes from just personal values. I don't need to yell from the top of the roof on how good I am. I think it's just something we all kind of instill in the business, but also the key for me is to actually have a laugh, be around people I enjoy working with, both clients and internally, and any stakeholder I work with. It's always, life's pretty serious,
Yeah.
but it's also important for us to kind of enjoy what we're doing, have a joke. Things get serious. Yes, they do, but also kind of taking a bit of the light side of life and actually enjoying what we're doing. Helping first and leading with heart and working with purpose, So one thing we've always done is for us is, regardless of the challenges the client's having, is we need to ensure that we're actually helping.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's pointless. And there's an emotional side. So we're dealing with people's emotions. We're dealing with people's personal wealth. We're dealing with people's business wealth, which then leads on to the relationships. So relationships for us is what we've built the business on for the last 15 years. Everything is about relationships, whether it's people like yourself and building relationships, because there's a massive trust element with what we do. And if there's no trust, you don't really, it's not transactional for us.
No.
It's more, when I first started, someone actually first quite successfully said to me, don't worry about the dollars will come. And to a degree, that's probably, it's what we've stuck to over the years.
Yeah.
Sometimes to our own detriment, but also a lot more to our benefit. Some people might take advantage of that, and you kind of do all this work and you might not get the gain in the future. But 98% of the time, people know when you've supported them, and people know when you've got a good relationship and you're doing things for the right reason, not just for dollars.
Yeah.
And I think that's allowed us to grow to where we are.
Yes. Sorry to jump in, but on that's interesting, because this is definitely not about me today. This is about you and your business. But as by way of example, I started with a similar philosophy, I suppose, where I didn't take on clients that I didn't think were a fit for us.
Yep.
But also that we may not be a fit for them. It's a two-way street. It's not just about me, it's about them as well. And interestingly, and I'll tell this story and just sort of see if you've had a similar experience, where through COVID with the lockdowns, I found in our business, we probably took on a few clients that weren't that fit. And I think and don't get me wrong, we were in a very fortunate situation that the nature of my work meant that COVID didn't mean we shut down and lost our business. So, there were people doing it really tough, and we didn't have that. So I didn't take clients on because I was scrambling and desperate. I think what happened was people were referring clients, and I felt this desire to help them in a tough period. So I was like, I've got to help this person. But then it kind of quickly came to light that we weren't a fit. They weren't a fit for us. We weren't a fit for them. And I had to actually recalibrate the business over, when we sort of got out of the COVID lockdown period, and I sort of realized that that's what was happening. I had to recalibrate and go back to that core. So I think we've all done it. Have you found that where you've sort of gone, hold on, we've slipped here and we're starting to take people on that?
Yeah, it still happens now. There's an element of, I don't know, morally wanting to help someone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you kind of, against your better judgment, you kind of take those steps to assist, because you feel like, I think it's the moral compass of saying, well, they sound like they need help and I think I could help. But the reality is, with time, you kind of, I hear it a lot with even new clients coming on board. Oh, my accountant. And it's like, okay, I get it. But also, how much of it is yourself?
Yep.
Without, that doesn't happen a lot, but when you start to learn as time progresses that you can help someone as much as you can. It's no different to myself. People try and help me to do things. If I don't want to make the change, it doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter what you pay. Doesn't matter what you do. If you're not taking action yourself to assist yourself in growth, yes, you can have people help you try and get there, but it won't happen. Like COVID was, yeah, I lost my voice during COVID from talking to too many people. I used to get home thinking, why can't I speak? But
Yes.
yeah, COVID was a specific area. That was one time we actually, I know a lot of people capitalized on that at the time, but we kind of stepped up at that time, and I was like, look, guys, let's not try and capitalize on this. Obviously, it's a challenge for a lot of clients. We were fortunate seeing we could continue operating. We had the systems and processes automated, so it was just unplug and everyone goes home.
Yeah.
But we didn't. We rode that wave with clients to try and assist, because it was, it's quite detrimental to a lot of businesses. Yes, there was a lot of support, but we probably went far and beyond. We actually probably won a few clients during that period because people, just kind of tried to capitalize on it a bit much in a point of disadvantage. So we didn't take that opportunity, but I don't think it was an opportunity. It was probably more of a, an ability to help.
Yeah.
But yes, I think naturally, the moral compass kicks in and you kind of take people on, and, and there's times where we've taken people on and 6 to 12 months later, it's the hard conversation of saying, look, unfortunately, we're probably not suited to what you need.
Yeah.
And there's probably others that might be able to work with you without it impacting you or us in the long term.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's, and just circling back about wanting change. So one of my key questions that I ask now, and I've only started asking this over the last 18 months, 24 months, I ask prospective clients if they're coachable. So I've specifically asked, like, are you coachable? We work with people who are coachable. Now, that doesn't mean you have to just blindly accept anything I say, because it's not about that, because it's not my plan, it's your plan, right? But I talk a lot now about coachability, and it's interesting because you still get people, I'm up for it, I'm there, and it's a bit like saying you've got to step up from year 12 football to AFL and realizing this is hard. So
it is.
Yeah, I want it, but then when you're actually in it, it's like, no, that's not for me. So
correct.
I think that's what you're referring to, that kind of coachability and the desire.
Yeah, and it is. It's being open-minded and being able to kind of accept that we don't know things. Like, I always use myself as an example when I'm talking to people, and I always look at what challenges I face, because sometimes I think, I'm coachable. And then, am I? It's
that's half. Isn't that hard?
Yeah, it is a hard shift. It's a hard shift for people to kind of take a step back and actually say, okay, I know what I know, but I don't know what I don't know, and I'm happy to accept that I don't know everything. Which is it is a hard mental shift, especially if people have been in business for 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years. It's hard to change that mind shift, and actually accept that, you're probably right. I do need to make some change, and this will help me progress to where I want to. Someone always, I do a lot of personal development as well for myself, but common term is you'll only make change when you can find the purpose for that change, and there's enough in it for you to make the change. And sometimes that's not until it hurts, and it hurts enough that it'll force you to make the change, which is just part of nature.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's interesting, because I was just going to ask you about, I believe, and I'm interested, I think we'll be on the same page here. Do you believe that that's important for entrepreneurship? Like, that you have to be in a position where you're like, I'm always learning, like continual learning.
Yes. Yeah. It's one of the key things, I think, is not being afraid to ask for help, but also surrounding yourself with people that, you can progress a lot faster if you ask for help. I was always, early days, even as far as back as probably just 5 years ago, my philosophy was, I'm in this, I need to take action, I need to fix everything. It's my problem. I've created it, I'll fix it. But as time's gone on, I've developed and understood, hang on, I can call on people to help me and surround myself with people who will give me the advice, and ask questions to people who have had more experience and have more knowledge, who can actually expedite or create greater, a faster track to where I want to go. So by not doing that, all I'm doing is holding myself back to progress to that next level. And if I don't open my mind to that, I'm not gonna progress. I will progress, but it's gonna be a lot slower.
I think you've just articulated. So it's a question I ask all of my guests, and I'm not going to ask it because I think you've just actually articulated it, which is the value of having, a business advisor, a financial advisor, if not those, a mentor, a peer group that you involve yourself in with other peers. That's the value of advice and support, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. And this touches on, like, I'm not a personal wealth. I don't give people advice in personal wealth. That's why I work with people like yourself. In terms of creating that path, and it's the same with business. I draw on people I know. I draw on people that I've worked with. I draw on clients' knowledge. If I've got something that's kind of bothering me, I'll call a client that might be in a specific industry or that has had multiple years of business experience at a high level.
Yeah.
And I ask the question, and it's that person doesn't judge you. They respect you for asking the question.
Yeah.
And the knowledge and information you get from them is like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And it's over the years, you kind of go, oh, I look back to what I did 10 years ago, 15 years ago to what I do now and where I want to head. And I'm like, wow, this is completely different, and I don't even think it's finished. Like, for me, it's like the next 15 to 10 or the next 3 to 10 years is going to continue to develop and build. And that's the same thing with personal, the personal side of things is, I prefer to use myself as experience, and others that do it is, with people that are at entrepreneurial level and operating their business, the business becomes so centralized part of your life that you forget what's happening on the personal side of your life, and you kind of let that slip. So it's for me, it's like, well, what's the point of having a great business if on a personal level you haven't got a plan? There's no difference.
Yeah.
Absolutely no difference. If I got a business plan, I need to have a personal plan, the same as everything else in life. It needs to be the same. It's the same structure. It's just a different part of it. And a lot of us don't do it. I've been guilty of not doing it. I focus solely on the business. You don't create that platform or wealth outside of it.
Yep.
And what have you got? Great, I've got a good business. Sometimes it's like you get to a point where you go, well, you're at retirement age. What wealth have you created outside? Sometimes they haven't created wealth, or it's locked in a business and they can't, to get it out. It can still happen, but that it's a bit more difficult to structure and help that assisted path for them to get the best outcome. So very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. Now I'm sure you know this because we've known, I probably didn't declare before we started. I've known you a very long time.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you know this about me, but I'm always talking to business clients about being exit ready. I think you've just hit it on the head again. It's not because I'm talking to the client about preparing their business for exit necessarily, although that's part of and we draw on experts like yourself to say, well, let's look at the financials of the business and where is this, so it's actually more about what you just said and saying, putting yourself into a financial position that you've got the choice to exit if you want to or not. You've got choice. And that you've got a business that's so financially fit so this is my mantra, it allows you to do, what you want, when you want, with the people you want to do it with.
Yeah.
Otherwise, as a previous guest, Andy Gowers, just said a couple of episodes ago, you don't own a business, you own a job.
Yeah. And that's quite common.
Yeah.
It's quite common. And it's, I think, it's common in a lot of businesses. It's been common in my business. It's a shift. It's a mental shift. It takes a lot of energy to get there. You kind of push yourself to the levels, you might do 50, 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week. You become part of the business. There's no freedom. really. It is a job.
Yeah.
You're paying yourself.
Yep.
You're paying yourself. Yes, you might get good dividends, but what's the point of it if you don't have that freedom? And a lot of clients get to, sometimes I get onto a client 15, 20 years later and it's like, what am I going to do? I'm just going to shut the doors and pull the rollers all down and I'm done, or I'll just, dissolve the business. And I'm like, you've been doing this for 15, 20 years. Have you thought of selling? Oh, you think I could sell it? It's like, well, it's going to take a bit of work, but yeah, we could get there, or
we've got to try
something.
Something's better than nothing. You've got to get some back end dividend. Yeah,
it has come about, and I think one of the other aspects on a personal perspective, which is interesting, is I think sometimes and this is more personal than business, is I found that if people almost lose their identity because of their business, and they don't create something outside of business. So they get to the end, and it's like, what have I got? I don't have much. I've got nothing. What am I going to do? I don't have anything to do. I can't get rid of my business. I don't want to stay at home. That type of personal aspect from there, where they don't have that personal hobbies, things like that are, that's touching more on the personal side of things, but you lose your identity and you've lost everything, which is probably one of my biggest fears, because it's quite depressing to see someone who has been in business for 20 years, it's completely lost or sold their business and then kind of retired, quite wealthy, but doesn't have something to look forward to, which I think is another important aspect.
Oh, look, I 100% agree. 100% agree with all of that. I don't even have anything to add to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Developing your own life outside of your business, I think, is incredibly important. And that's again, we're going down the cliched path here, but we'll pick back up. So talking about that identity, and that's also part of, planning. When we're talking about planning, with clients, we're sort of saying, well, how do you want to live? Let's say we've got a 10-year plan. How do you want to live in 10 years' time? What do you want your life to look like? And I know for me, like, I don't think I'll retire as such, but I would expect that I would, and this is not self-serving, this statement, I really love doing what I'm doing, but I think what I would do is probably scale down and be a bit more one-on-one consultant type role, So I don't think I'll ever actually just pull up stumps and stop, because I do think I'd probably get a little bit bored.
Yeah.
But I pursue other activities, and I'd probably pursue them further because I have more time, That idea of, I'm just going to stop work, pull up stumps, and maybe go work in the veggie patch every day, it's a bit of a killer.
You
see some of those people drop off after a couple of years.
Yeah. It's not healthy. It's definitely not healthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It's important. I'm probably the same. It'd be something I've always said I'd love to get to a stage where I could create, just do pro bono work, work with people at different levels, at entrepreneur level, disadvantaged people who are looking to kind of change life and assist them in growing and giving others an opportunity that they might not have had because they haven't had that life, or they haven't had that opportunity, but want to make the change, want to break the mold.
Yeah, you just had me thinking there. We might have to reconvene on that idea later in life, you and I. I might join you. Go out and save the world. I'm being facetious by saying that. That leads me to, we've been talking about the future and future planning. I mean,
so in terms of where I see the co, for the next 5 to 10 years, from a business perspective, the way we look at it is we assess, so 12 months, 3 years, and then 10 years in a business. From a business planning perspective, we then break that down further. So we would look at a 12-month period to achieve the 3-year target, and then we look at that on a quarterly basis for the 12 months. So we actually develop, on the back of the 12 months, we develop quarterly targets so that it's a little bit more bite-sized and a little bit more easy to achieve. Otherwise, you can get lost. The key for us is probably in the next 3 years to double where we're at. And it's not just doubling revenue. It's actually just, I don't just chase the top dollar value because that's insanity. I focus on what we're trying to achieve as a business. And I think for the next 3 years, it's to double, but also continue to build probably one of the best advisory firms in Australia by the 10-year target. That's what we're aiming for in 10 years. And when I say that, it's to build, an advisory firm which will then develop a private equity arm to assist basically a private equity arm that assists clients. So the key would be to have a board on that private equity group, which would assist the client in growing to the next phase and actually having that board approve that equity contribution. And we would become part of that group to continue to grow. So we don't want 10 million clients from our perspective. What we want is a select group of clients that we can work with well and continue to grow and be part of their journey. And also probably be templated as what advisory should entail, because there's a lot of advisory firms out there. There's a lot of accountants out there promoting advisory. Some, not all, I'm not saying I'm the best, but a lot of it do it well and a lot don't do it well, because there's obviously quantitative numbers, in terms of performance and what else is required, but in terms of qualitative factors and actually understanding a business and what they're doing and why they're doing it is where our strength lies. So to be able to kind of sit there and actually in 10 years' time go, the co-accountants and business advisors are probably one of the best advisory firms in Australia and have a private equity arm, and we want to work with them, is what is our key target.
Yeah, great. That's fantastic. With so for anyone listening that might be either starting out in business or thinking about starting out in business or has started and maybe feeling a bit stale, what sort of advice would you give those people about, taking that step of having that entrepreneurial mindset, for example? What advice would you give those people?
There's a lot of advice, but I suppose if you're starting out, as we kind of touched on it earlier, is plan. Having a plan is important. Don't wait for perfection, because, I find a lot of people trying to get it perfect. You're not going to get it perfect, as much as you try. Yeah. I was one of those people. I wanted to have everything, consider every factor possible, but it's not going to, it's just not possible. The reality is get in there, get started, but have a plan on what you want to do. Yes. Focus on what people want. What product or service do they need? But challenge the market. If it is something you believe in and you think that it's going to disrupt the market, go for it. But believe that you also need to adapt to ensure that it's what people want. Get the right people, both internally and externally. As we touched on earlier, so many times through business, I've held on to people that probably aren't the right fit. Once again, from a moral perspective, as you do sometimes with clients, but also internally.
Yes.
And it holds you back, unfortunately. You have to have the right people on your team. They have to be in the right seat as well. They have to be the people that are going to drive the business, and they have to be enjoying what they do. They have to believe in what you're going to do. They have to actually be part of what you do. So that's probably and that goes with external people, because when you're starting, you might not have the resource or the money to have someone in full time, but you might work with external parties to do that. Afraid to say no is probably another thing. If it's not what you want and you're kind of sitting on the fence, don't do it. Because what happens is you do something which goes against your values or your gut instinct, and you end up, suffering longer term. It does set you back.
Yes.
And then, one of the other factors is, and this is the accountant in me, but I also think is important, is understand your numbers. Because as much as some people, I see their eyes glaze over when you're talking numbers, understanding what your sales should be, understanding what your break even is, understanding what your gross profit is, understanding what your overhead costs are, all key metrics, and understanding your cash flow, just key metrics in any business. It doesn't matter what you're doing. They are the key metrics on any business. And if you don't understand it, just ask the question. Your accountant or your advisor can help you understand it. You don't have to have a detailed understanding of debits and credits and get to that level. But I think it's important. I encourage people as much as they don't want to understand it because it's just not their strength.
Yeah.
Understanding the basics is so important because so many people just let that go. And
Peter, you won't be surprised that I'll say this. I come across business clients who might have a rough idea about their income. They might say, oh, okay, I make X, I turn over X per week or month or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But they actually don't know how many dollars they spend per dollar earned.
Yeah.
Even to that simplistic degree of saying, well, what comes in and how much goes out? And they're like, oh, I'm not sure. I mean, even if you can just start there, you're going, okay, as a starting point.
Correct. It's just, it doesn't need to be, you don't need an accounting degree, but you need to just have a very, like a basic understanding of numbers,
Yeah.
And one thing I think one of the key factors is spend time to reflect, set aside a day a week or a month just to kind of focus on what you've achieved, how far you've come, because we do lose sight, and that's probably a personal reflection from my side is you lose sight on how much you've achieved, how far you've come, and because you've moved on to the next thing and you lose that perspective. But I think you need to make a conscious decision to try and allocate time in the calendar to say, okay, once a month, I'm not going to spend time on the business. I'm just going to look at what I've done, how things have gone, what I've achieved, what I want to achieve, and how I'm going to progress forward.
I think you should celebrate your wins for that reason.
Yeah.
I think I absolutely, and I've been guilty of exactly the same thing.
You're
so
I've locked it in the calendar once a month, and I still sometimes like, I can't do that. I've got to go to a meeting.
Yeah.
But I think it's still in there, and there's days where I go, okay, this is a perfect opportunity, but I take advantage of it, and actually just it's an important factor.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So I ask this question of every guest: is entrepreneurship for everybody?
No, I don't think it is. I think it takes a certain character. There's people I know who have tried on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
It's tough. It is tough. There's a massive, there's a massive requirement, and I think some people are just cut out for it and others aren't. But not everyone. Like if it was easy, I think everyone would do it. Like obviously, cliche saying, but it's not easy. I'm not saying that people, if they have a passion or a drive or a dream, go for it. Like, I'm not saying that don't try it. Definitely try it. It's not easy. If you can resist the failure, or not failure, but what I call challenges, and you can continue to build, like business is difficult. It doesn't always work out. It might take, I met someone probably 2 months ago who was quite successful. He's what they call a serial entrepreneur. So he's had multiple businesses.
Yes. Yep.
And we're just having a conversation, just at an event. And he, unbeknown to me, you don't judge a book by its character, but talking to him in a bit more detail, you kind of start to realize you've quite switched on and you've been very successful. Quite young. He said he's had 15 businesses. So out of the 15, 12 have failed and 3 have been very successful.
Yeah.
So it's, I suppose the answer to that question is if you believe you could do it, but there's nothing wrong with saying it's not for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's not for everyone and that's okay.
No. But that doesn't mean they don't have value elsewhere. So from my perspective, if I had all my staff that wants to be entrepreneurs, I wouldn't have any staff. So
spot on.
Well, that's the first thing. But the second thing is, there's guys in here that are amazing, 10 times better than what I am. And I couldn't do what I do without them. So there's still value for anyone, really.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why we say, it's not for everyone, and that's okay. Because it's just not everyone's cup of tea. So that's absolutely fine. What I sort of picked out of what you just described, though, was that what it sounded like, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, was that,
No.
as for a mindset, you do need to be resilient. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to be resilient. I know that's yet another word that gets thrown around all the time, but you've got to have a spine and you've got to be prepared to take the challenges.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, right. Coming to the end of our discussion, Peter, and it's been quite illuminating. Looking back, what are you most proud of so far?
I've thought about this a lot. I think the biggest thing I'm probably proud of that makes me the happiest is the impact we've had on our clients' lives and journeys in business. Our ability to consistently adjust and improve what we do while learning. So, kind of that path has always been there to continue to learn. But I think one of my clients said it once, which was the best thing I've ever heard, actually. He said, and they're a young business. He said, the best part is, he goes, we'll grow old together. And not only will we grow old together, we'll both be on the same journey for business. And I never thought of it that way, but it's kind of like you do kind of ride that journey with the client, and while they're growing, you're growing, and it's rewarding to hear a client turn around and say, Peter's been amazing. He's helped us change our business. We've changed the way we think about things, and the co-has been supportive of everything we do. It's the most rewarding thing I could ever ask for, really. I'll get text messages from clients or anything like that. Just, it's those moments that you go, this is worth it. It's worth every minute of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a good place for us to leave our conversation, Peter. I think that's a good spot to leave it. I really appreciate your time today. Most welcome. And maybe we'll get you back for season 2.
Fantastic. Can't wait.
Thanks, mate.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
And that's all for this episode of Origin to Ambition. Thanks for tuning in. To make sure you don't miss our next conversation, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen in. For more information, you can visit us at dominiumcapital.com.au, and we'll see you next time.